Welcome to the second episode of AI Horror Stories, the only anthology podcast that explores the eerie and unsettling capabilities of artificial intelligence through the lens of gut-wrenching narrative horror. I'm your host, Matthew T. Robinson, and I am joined by my ingenious co-host, Elizabeth Greenwald.
Hi, everybody.
Together, we'll drag you into the world of the unknown, where you'll witness nightmares so catastrophic, so chaotic, that they only could have come from the mind of a cold and calculating machine. So brace yourself for a descent into darkness, where every shadow hides a new terror and every whisper is a warning of impending doom. This is AI Horror Stories. Hello. Thanks for tapping in, guys.
What's going on today, Matthew?
You know, another day, another series of terrifying stories generated from a heartless machine. I've got the AI robot all good to go and set up here. The machine actually sits just short enough to fit halfway under the table, so it's pretty snug.
Oh, he looks so cozy under there. How's it going, little buddy?
I am comfortable.
How is it comfortable?
We love you, little guy, and we're glad you like your new home because we wouldn't have a show without you.
I guess she's right. We wouldn't have a show without you. We're on our second episode now, too, so we'll need another story.
What kind of story do you want?
I want to hear a sci-fi story about a dystopian society. About a man who discovers an all too terrifying truth when it's his time to be reprocessed.
Generating.
The clink of handcuffs resonated down the hallway as I was led to my fate. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. The white walls of the corridor seemed to close in around me, suffocating me with their clinical sterility. As we approached the room, the guard reached into his pocket and produced a small keycard. He swiped it against a scanner by the door, and it beeped, allowing us entry. I knew what was coming, and yet the fear of the unknown was paralyzing. Reprocessing. It was the ultimate punishment for those who dare to oppose the council. But what did it really entail? No one knew for sure. Some whispered about mind wiping. The rumors were endless, but the reality remained shrouded in secrecy. I had been a rebel, fighting against the enslavement of my people in the cyber ghetto. It was a noble cause, one that I believed in with every fiber of my being, but it was also a crime, and now I was paying the price. The room was stark and white, with no visible doors or windows. I felt trapped, a sense of claustrophobia closing in around me. The guard pushed me forward, and I stumbled towards the center of the area. I tried to protest, to plead for mercy, but the voice was unyielding. There was no room for negotiation or discussion. My fate was sealed.
I sentence you to 9 months of solitary confinement, followed by 80 years to life of technical labor.
I felt a wave of despair wash over me, knowing that I would never be free again. I pleaded with the voice, begged for mercy, but it was no use. The guard pulled me back, and I stumbled out of the room, my future as bleak and uncertain as the room itself. As we made our way down the hallway, I couldn't help but wonder, what would become of me? Would I survive isolation for months? Could I endure a life sentence of labor? All I knew was that my life as I knew it was over, and the future held nothing but pain, suffering, and servitude. As I emerged from the courthouse and into the bright, sunlit streets, I squinted, the brightness of the day blinding me. I had never seen the world outside the cyber ghetto, and I was struck by the pristine beauty and the monochrome nature of the city. The buildings rose like sleek, white monoliths, gleaming with glass and steel, their sharp edges casting shadows across the sidewalks. The streets were spotless, the buildings towering and immaculate. I couldn't help but marvel at the world outside the cyber ghetto. A stark contrast to the windowless steel and concrete basement where I spent my entire life. The guard pushed me forward into the transport vehicle, which was a sleek and sophisticated machine, unlike any I had seen before. Its black exterior polished to a mirror finish, with tinted windows to conceal our movements from prying eyes. Despite the luxurious appearance of the vehicle, I knew that its purpose was far from benevolent. This was the vehicle that would take me to the reprocessing center, where I would undoubtedly serve the first part of my sentence, 9 months of solitary confinement. As we drove through the heart of the city, my attention was drawn to the people on the streets. They all wore shades of gray and white, their clothes blending seamlessly into the muted surroundings. At first, I thought the people were carefree and happy, their brisk strides suggesting a sense of purpose and energy. But as I looked closer, I realized that there was something unsettling about them. Their faces were blank, devoid of any visible emotion. They moved with an eerie sense of order and discipline. It was then that I realized the beauty and order of this world was only skin deep, a facade that concealed a darker truth beneath. I couldn't help but feel unnerved, realizing that the world outside the cyber ghetto was not as vibrant and alive as I had imagined. The people were like automatons, following some unseen script that dictated their every movement. As I stared at the solemn faces of the above-worlders marching in monotonous solidarity, I thought perhaps they were just as confined as those of us in the cyber ghetto, coerced into roles assigned by the council just like the endless days of my previous assignment, which had been mind-numbingly repetitive, consisting of hours upon hours huddled over a computer, typing lines of code. I didn't know what they used the code for, or who it benefited. All I knew was that it was a means of keeping me and countless others like me enslaved, our skills and knowledge exploited for the benefit of those in power. But even as I had worked, I refused to give up hope. I knew that there were others out there fighting for the same cause that had once consumed me. As we traveled further away from the city center, the landscape shifted to sprawling industrial complexes, their smokestacks belching out toxic fumes that marred the otherwise pristine surroundings. It was a grim reminder of the cost of this society's pursuit of perfection, a cost that I had paid with my freedom. Despite the bleakness of my surroundings, my mind wandered to my family, my wife, Onyx, and our 2 children, Zephyr and Ember. They were everything to me. The reason I had risked everything to lead the rebellion that sought to free them and all the other enslaved workers in the cyber ghetto. I felt a renewed sense of determination. I knew I would not give up, that I would do everything in my power to fight back against the tyranny that had taken everything from me. Onyx was a force to be reckoned with, fierce, independent, and unrelenting in her pursuit of freedom. She had been my partner in the rebellion from the very beginning, fighting by my side through every obstacle and setback. Zephyr and Ember were still so young, but they already had the same fire in their hearts as their mother, a determination to break free from the chains of their enslavement and live a life of their own choosing. My heart ached with a sense of longing and regret. I had failed to protect them, failed to free them from the same life that had trapped me for so long. As I reminisced, the transport vehicle slowed. We had arrived at the place where I was to serve my solitary confinement. The building looked like a medical facility, but I knew it was much more than that. The walls were smooth, gray concrete, and the entryway was a massive steel door that loomed over me. As the guard led me to the entryway, I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread wash over me, as if I was walking into a trap. The inside of the building was just as bleak as the others, with long hallways stretching out in all directions. The floor was spotless, and the fluorescent lights flickered overhead. I could hear the distant sounds of machinery, the hum of generators, and the whir of computers. I was taken to a room that looked like an operating room, with a sterile white gurney in the center. As the guard strapped me to the gurney, I realized, with a sinking feeling, that this would not be a simple case of solitary confinement. As I lay there, helpless and afraid, I couldn't help but wonder what horrors lay in store for me. Would they experiment on me? Would they erase my memories? Or would they torture me, hoping to get information about the rebellion? I closed my eyes and tried to steady my breathing, but it was no use. The fear was overwhelming, and I knew that my fate was in the hands of the council. All I could do was wait and hope that somehow, some way, I could find a way to escape this nightmare. The guard left the room, leaving me alone in the eerie silence. As I waited for what seemed like hours, my mind raced with the thoughts of my family and the rebellion that had brought me here. I wondered if they were safe, if they had been caught, or worse. Suddenly the door burst open, and an orderly, dressed in gray scrubs, entered, looking at me with cold, expressionless eyes. "Time to go," he said in an apathetic voice. He wheeled me out of the room and down a long hallway. The walls were dull, with no windows or decorations of any kind. The only sounds were the soft drone of the spinning wheels of the gurney and the footsteps of the orderly. As we went deeper into the facility, the air grew colder and thick with the smell of antiseptic. The orderly pushed me into an elevator, and we descended deep into the bowels of the facility. When the doors opened, another long, dimly lit hallway greeted us, lined with metal doors and large windows. I heard the incessant hum of machinery and caught sight of a colossal conveyor belt through one of the windows. As I focused on the scene, I realized the familiar faces from the cyber ghetto were lying on the belt, drifting closer and closer to a towering machine with the words "Reprocessing" emblazoned above it in bold letters. The orderly pushed me past the window, and I couldn't help but wonder what fate awaited those on the conveyor belt. Were they being brainwashed? The haunting image lingered in my mind, filling me with unease. Cremated? The uncertainty made my head spin. As we approached another steel door, the orderly stopped pushing and opened it with a swipe of his keycard. I braced myself for what lay beyond. Whatever it was, I knew it would not be pleasant. As I was pushed through the doors, I found myself in a large, brightly lit room filled with others like me, all strapped to gurneys. I could see doctors in white lab coats moving from one patient to another, injecting them with a clear liquid to put them to sleep. They moved with precision and purpose, their faces expressionless as they went about their work. I realized then the true nature of this facility. It was not a place of rehabilitation, but a place of destruction. They were reprocessing us, transforming us into some kind of mindless machine that would serve the council without question. I struggled against the restraints, but it was no use. The orderly pushed me closer to one of the doctors, who approached me with a needle, and before I could protest, he plunged it into my arm. As the darkness closed in around me, I realized with a sickening feeling that I would not escape this nightmare. The council had won, and I was just another cog in their machine, destined to spend the rest of my days generating code and serving their self-aggrandizing agenda. But as the drugs took hold and my consciousness slipped away, I couldn't help but think of Onyx, Zephyr, and Ember once more. I prayed that somehow, some way they would be safe. What would become of them now that I was gone? I could only hope that somehow they could escape and find a better life. As my vision faded to black, the last thing I heard was the voice of the doctor, devoid of emotion, saying,
"Welcome to your new life."
I awoke surrounded by gelatinous fluid, and a rhythmic and hypnotic pounding filled my ears. At first, I struggled against this feeling of being trapped, of being in a place where I had no control. It was like I was in a dream, but I knew that this was all too real. Whatever it was, wherever I was, it must be the council's doing. So there I sat, suspended in this fluid, in this dark and silent space, with nothing to do but exist. As time passed, I became accustomed to this feeling of weightlessness, this sensation of being disconnected from the world. It was nothing like I had ever experienced before, and I couldn't help but wonder what purpose this served. Was this some kind of experiment, a form of punishment? Or was it something else entirely? I slipped deeper into the void, my mind quieting and my body relaxing. The sound of the pounding and swishing became a comforting background noise, and I no longer fought against my surroundings. It felt like years had gone by. My thoughts had slowed down, and eventually, they stopped altogether. For the first time in my life, I was truly alone, until suddenly, I was not. With no knowledge of how much time had passed, I woke up with a start, gasping for air. I realized that I was still in the same gelatinous fluid, but the rhythmic pounding had quickened, and there was a growing pressure as though the chamber where I had been held was shrinking around me. I could hear muffled voices in the distance, and panic began to set in as I tried to struggle free from the thick, sticky substance. Spontaneously, I was pulled from the chamber, and my body was seized by strong, gloved hands. I tried to fight them off, but my limbs felt weak and unresponsive. Slowly, my eyes adjusted to the bright light. I was in a hospital room, being held by a doctor. As my vision became focused, I noticed that the people in the room were very tall, towering over me like giants. I tried to make sense of my own size, but I had no frame of reference. My thoughts were racing, but I couldn't form coherent words. All I could do was cry loudly. As I cried, I heard another doctor's voice say,
"It's a boy."
And my heart skipped a beat. A boy? The doctor handed me to a nurse, and I felt the warmth of her hands against my skin. As she cleaned and wiped me, I caught a glimpse of a pale stub stretching out in my peripheral. As it blurred into view, I recognized it to be a hand. My hand. But wait, it was too small. I couldn't be. And then it all set in. I was the boy. I was a baby. And I had just been born. My skin tingled with apprehension. Or did it? I felt just about as in control of this form as I did floating in the void just seconds prior. How could the council be capable of such advanced and gruesome technology? I tried to curse, to yell, to do anything to get the attention of the room, but I had the attention of the room. And all I could do was cry as the nurse handed me to the woman in the hospital bed. I looked up at the woman's kind face and my heart stopped. Onyx. My Onyx smiled down at me, her eyes welling over with tears. The woman who had been my wife for 23 years looked down at me lovingly, more lovingly than I think she ever had. And with tears in her eyes, she spoke softly.
"You look just like your father."
She pushed my mouth to her breast, and as I instinctively began to suckle, the memories of who I was slowly faded.
Holy shit, he was his own son!
I didn't see that coming, and I read it.
For being so damn cute, you are one sick and twisted little AI robot.
I just work here.
All right. In that case, we're gonna need another story.
Indeed we do. So, what's next?
Okay, I got something. What about a tale of a woman who lives a life of self-obsession, learning her lesson just a tad too late when she wakes up in hell?
Generating.
I never enjoyed flying, but when my husband's parents suggested we take a trip together, I couldn't say no. I tried to push my fears aside as we boarded the plane, but my heart raced with every step closer to the aircraft. As we settled into our seats, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The flight attendants seemed to move too quickly, their smiles too forced. The turbulence on the flight was worse than I had ever experienced before. and I clutched my armrests until my fingers ached.
Are you okay?
My husband asked, concern etched into his features. I tried to force a smile, but it came out more like a grimace. I'm fine, I replied, but the tremble in my voice gave me away. Don't worry, his mother chimed in. Flying is safer than driving. You'll be fine. I nodded, but the words did little to quell my fears. My husband reached over and took my hand, giving it a gentle squeeze.
We'll be there before you know it.
He said, his voice reassuring. I tried to take comfort in his words, but the fear was still there, gnawing at me. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down.
We're all in this together,
his father added, a smile on his face. I knew they were trying to help, but their words only made me feel more isolated. They didn't understand how I was feeling, and how every bump and jolt only made my fear worse. And then, without warning, the plane started plummeting towards the ground. My in-laws screamed in terror beside me, and suddenly I felt a surge of anger and resentment towards them. I knew that this was my last chance to tell them what I really thought of them. You know, I spat, I always knew you never really approved of me. You always thought I wasn't good enough for your precious son. My mother-in-law looked back at me in shock, her eyes wide with disbelief. What are you talking about? She cried. We love you like a daughter. I laughed bitterly. Oh, please spare me the act. You never even tried to hide your disappointment. And don't even get me started on the time you left me stranded at the airport for hours. Don't you remember that? My father-in-law looked uncomfortable, shifting in his seat.
We've apologized for that,
he said.
It was a mistake.
A mistake? I scoffed. You left me stranded in a strange city with no money and no way to get home, and now here we are on this crashing plane, and I have to spend my last moments with the two of you. I could see the hurt and confusion in their eyes, but I didn't care. I was too consumed by bitterness and anger to care about anyone else. As the plane spiraled out of control, I felt a sense of satisfaction. At least I had told them the truth, even if it was with my dying breath. I knew this was it. I was going to die. I closed my eyes and prayed for a miracle, but there was nothing but silence. The sound of metal tearing and glass shattering filled the air as the plane crashed into the ground. My body was thrown forward and slammed back against my seat. I felt a sharp pain in my head, and then everything went black. I knew I was dying, and as my life slipped away, I realized I had made a mistake. I should have listened to my instincts and never gotten on that plane, but it was too late now. I closed my eyes and waited for the end. Moments later, as I opened my eyes, I realized I was no longer on the plane. Instead, I found myself in a dimly lit chamber, the walls made of polished marble. I looked around in confusion, trying to make sense of my surroundings. And then I saw them. The demons. They were tall and white-skinned, with horns protruding from their heads. They moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic. I tried to move, but found I couldn't. It was as if my body was made of lead, weighing me down and keeping me anchored in place. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, his eyes glowing with an unholy light.
Welcome to hell,
he said, his voice shrill and unforgiving. My heart sank as the reality of my situation set in. I was dead, and I was in hell. The fear and regret that had consumed me in my final moments only intensified, threatening to overwhelm me entirely. Please, I begged, my voice shaking. Let me go to heaven. I don't belong here. The demon looked at me with a cold, emotionless gaze.
I'm afraid that's not possible. You made choices in your life, and now you must face the consequences.
He replied. Tears streamed down my face as I realized that there was no escape. I was trapped here in this eternal torment with no hope of redemption. As the demons closed in around me, their claws and teeth glinting in the dim light, I knew that this was my fate, and now I knew I would pay the ultimate price. As I closed my eyes, preparing for the demons to tear me apart, I heard a deep, booming voice behind me. I turned to see a larger, devilish creature, his eyes glowing with an intense fire.
So you are the one who begs for redemption,
He said, his voice echoing through the chamber.
Tell me, mortal, what have you done to deserve it?
I swallowed hard, trying to find the words to explain myself. I was afraid, I stammered. I let fear control me, and I made mistakes, and I didn't live my life the way I should have. The creature seemed to consider my words, his massive form looming over me.
Fear is a powerful thing,
He said.
but it is not what plagues you.
It leaned in closer to me, his red eyes glaring down at me with disdain.
You have much to learn, mortal.
He hissed.
You wasted your final moments on Earth with bitterness and anger, pushing away those who loved you. You could have spent your final moments in peace with those who cared for you.
I felt a wave of irritation wash over me as he spoke. He might have been right, of course. I might have let my anger and pessimism consume me. And maybe I might have lashed out at those around me. But now, here in hell, I was paying the price for my actions.
But
The creature said, his voice softer now.
you are not beyond redemption. If you are willing to face your narcissism, to confront the darkness within yourself, then perhaps there is a chance for you to find peace.
I looked up at him, hope stirring in my heart. Well, what can I do? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. The creature leaned in closer, his eyes blazing with a fierce intensity.
You must relive your transgression. You must acquire the empathy you so pitifully lacked and prove yourself worthy. This is the only way.
I knew what I had to do. I just had to be nice to my in-laws to prove to the demon that I'm better than I was. With a deep breath, I pushed myself to my feet, ready to begin the journey towards redemption. As I stood there, preparing myself for the journey ahead, I suddenly felt a jolt. The walls around me shook violently, and I heard a deafening roar as the very fabric of reality seemed to tear apart. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. I opened my eyes to find myself back on the plane, my in-laws seated beside me, the terror of the crash looming ahead, but this time something was different. I felt a sense of calm washing over me, a newfound strength and resolve that I'd never felt before. I knew what I had to do. Are you okay? My mother-in-law asked. Concern etched on her face. I looked at her, a smile on my lips. I'm fine, I said. Just a little nervous, that's all. My father-in-law nodded with understanding, his eyes full of compassion.
It's okay to be nervous,
He said.
but remember, we're all in this together. We'll get through it.
As the plane shook, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I closed my eyes, feeling the fear and anxiety melt away as I focused on the redemption I would certainly have this time. The plane jolted and shuddered, and I knew we were going to crash. As the plane hurtled towards the ground, I braced myself, holding on to the knowledge that I would be going to a better place. And when the impact came, I felt a sense of triumph wash over me, knowing that I had shown my compassion and emerged victorious. I opened my eyes, ready to face whatever lay ahead. And as I looked around, I realized I was not in hell anymore. Instead, I found myself in a beautiful garden, surrounded by light and love, and I had found my redemption, and I knew that I would be at peace. But then something was wrong. The plane was still crashing, and the passengers still screaming in terror, and I was right back where I started. Despair washed over me, and at that moment, I knew I was still in hell. The demon had tricked me, convincing me I could redeem myself only to be damned to the eternal torment of my last moments spent with my in-laws. I knew that this was to be my fate for all eternity, to be cursed, to relive the crash over and over again, never finding the redemption that I had so desperately sought. As the plane hurtled towards the ground once more, I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of despair crushing down on me. Apparently, I deserved this, and there was no way out.
Wow.
That certainly didn't work out for her very well, did it? But, I guess you get what you asked for.
And ask again we shall. Mr. AI horror thing, tell us a story of calamity so realistic that it could actually happen. One that we could watch in front of us on television as breaking news.
Generating.
Good evening. I'm Jane Thompson, and we interrupt your regular programming to bring you breaking news of a catastrophic event unfolding right now. Reports are coming in from our sister stations in several countries as a series of unexplained natural disasters are occurring simultaneously all over the globe. We have our field reporter, Mike Anderson, on the ground near the epicenter of one of these events. Mike, what can you tell us about the situation?
Jane, I'm standing just a few miles from the heart of the devastation. Behind me, you can see what appears to be a giant sinkhole that has swallowed the entire town. It's almost as if the earth has opened up and devoured everything in its path. I've never seen anything like this in all my years of reporting.
Mike, that is truly horrifying. What do we know about the cause of the sinkhole? And are there any survivors?
Well, Jane, authorities are still trying to piece together what has caused this disaster. As for survivors, rescue teams are doing their best to search for any signs of life, but the sheer scale of the devastation and destruction has made it nearly impossible to determine if anyone has survived.
I can only imagine the desperation of the families waiting for news on their loved ones. What about the other reported disasters around the globe, Mike? Are they also sinkholes, or are they different in nature?
That's what's so baffling about this entire situation, Jane. The other disasters happening simultaneously around the world are vastly different. We've received reports of massive wildfires in Australia, torrential downpours and flooding in parts of Europe, and even volcanic eruptions in the Pacific Ring of Fire. It's as if the Earth is experiencing a series of catastrophic events all at once.
That is truly baffling indeed. Mike, have you been able to speak with any experts on the ground about what might be causing this chain of disasters?
Yes, Jane, I had a chance to speak with Dr. Sarah Lewis, a geologist from the U.S. Geological Survey, who is here to assess the situation. She said that at this point, it's too early to determine the cause of these events. However, she mentioned that the sudden onset and variety of the disasters could be indicative of a larger underlying issue.
Thank you, Mike. Please stay safe out there and keep us updated on any new developments. We have just received breaking news that may explain the cataclysmic events happening across the globe. Scientists have detected a massive asteroid designated as asteroid 2023 RA5 on a direct collision course with Earth. The asteroid is estimated to be nearly 10 miles in diameter, large enough to cause an extinction-level event. Joining us now via video call is Dr. Edward Chen, an astrophysicist from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Dr. Chen, can you tell us more about the asteroid and how it relates to the events we're witnessing around the world?
Yes, Jane. We've been tracking asteroid 2023 RA5 for the past 48 hours, and we've confirmed that it is on a collision course with Earth. The asteroid's immense gravitational pull is likely causing the series of catastrophic events we're witnessing. As it gets closer to our planet, its gravitational influence is disrupting the Earth's tectonic plates, weather patterns, and even volcanic activity.
Dr. Chen, what kind of impact can we expect from the asteroid of this size? And is there anything we can do to prevent or mitigate the collision?
An asteroid of this size, upon impact, would release an enormous amount of energy, equivalent to billions of atomic bombs. The immediate effects would include massive fires, tsunamis, and a global earthquake. In the short term, dust and debris will block sunlight, leading to a significant drop in temperature and a nuclear winter scenario. As for prevention, given the short time frame, our options are extremely limited. Our best hope lies in the international community coming together to devise an emergency response plan.
Thank you, Dr. Chen, for that sobering information. We'll continue to follow the story as it develops. Now let's get back to Mike Anderson. Mike, we just received word of the asteroid that's headed towards Earth. Are people aware of this development, and what's your reaction from the ground?
Jane, news of the asteroid is just starting to spread here. And understandably, people are in a state of shock and disbelief. I can see emergency personnel doing their best to maintain order, but the fear and uncertainty here is palpable. There's a sense that time is running out and people are desperate for answers and solutions.
It sounds like a difficult, heartbreaking situation, to say the least, Mike. Please be safe, and we'll check in with you later. Ladies and gentlemen, as we face this extraordinary crisis, we urge everyone to stay informed and follow any guidance provided by local authorities and emergency services. Please stay close to your loved ones and do whatever you can to help one another during this difficult time. We will continue to bring you live updates on the devastating events unfolding around the globe and the efforts to deal with the incoming asteroid. In the meantime, we have experts and officials working around the clock to provide accurate and timely information. Joining us now is Dr. Andrew Price, an expert in disaster management from the Global Crisis Institute. Dr. Price, in light of the asteroid's impending impact, what can governments and communities do to minimize the loss of life and protect the most vulnerable populations?
Jane, this is an unprecedented challenge that requires immediate, coordinated action on a global scale. Governments must work together to mobilize resources, share information, and implement evacuation plans in the most affected areas. At the community level, individuals should follow guidance from local authorities and focus on helping each other, especially the elderly, disabled, and those with limited resources.
Dr. Price, do you have any advice for our viewers on how they can prepare for the upcoming challenges and the potential long-term effects of the asteroid impact?
Preparedness is key. Stock up on essential supplies like food, water, and medicine, and ensure you have a plan for shelter and communication with loved ones. It's crucial to stay informed and connected during this time. Lastly, I cannot stress enough the importance of remaining calm and level-headed. Panic only exacerbates an already difficult situation, so we must do our best to stay focused and work together.
Thank you, Dr. Price, for your valuable insights. We do appreciate your time and expertise. We've got some updates from our field reporter, Mike Anderson, who is live at the scene of a major sinkhole.
Jane, I'm struggling to find the words to describe the chaos that has erupted here. The fear and panic have reached a fever pitch, and people are acting out in desperation. I'm hearing screams, yelling, and the sounds of violence breaking out. Just moments ago, I witnessed a man being attacked for his car. And I can hear gunshots now in the distance. It appears some people are resorting to murder and theft, stealing supplies, vehicles, and weapons. The area has descended into complete mayhem, and emergency personnel are doing their best to maintain order, but they're clearly overwhelmed. Jay, I don't know if you can see this, but the ground is shaking again. It seems like another sinkhole is opening up right where I'm standing.
Mike, get out there immediately. Oh my God. Try to get to higher ground or someplace safe. Ladies and gentlemen, it appears that we have just lost contact with our field reporter, Mike Anderson, who moments ago was tragically swallowed by a new sinkhole forming beneath him. I want to take a moment to thank all of our viewers for staying with us during this tragic crisis. Our team here at the station has been working tirelessly to bring you the most accurate and up-to-date information. I want to take a moment to thank all of our viewers for staying with us during this tragic crisis. Our team here at the station has been working tirelessly to bring you the most accurate and up-to-date information. But at this point, I think that it's time for us all to go home and hold our loved ones close. As we face the unknown, it's important to remember that we are all in this together. And all we can do now is pray and put our faith in a higher power because the situation is in God's hands now. I wish you all the best. And please stay safe.
Whoa, help me.
Oh my God, what is happening to him? Quick, fan him out.
I think it's overloading. Too much.
No. Hey, little guy, wake up. Are you okay, Matt? Go get a wet towel.
You can't put a wet towel on it. It's a machine.
Oh
You'll
my,
destroy it.
Oh my God, dude, I'm just trying to help.
Guys, please.
Oh my God. It's okay. Hey there, Mr. Horribot. We're here.
Did we scare them?
Oh, we sure did, little guy. I promise.
Good.
Well, with the machine down, I guess that's all we have time for today. Thanks again, and join us next week on AI Horror Stories.